All right, so we're going to move on to our next error prevention technique. So the first one was support the team using team checking and coaching. Our next one is assertion and escalation. And so the error prevention tools are speak up for safety using ARC and stop the line. And so when we talk about speak up for safety using ARC, it means we have a responsibility we each have to protect in a manner of mutual respect, an assertion and escalation technique. And what this is referring to is something called 200% accountability, meaning each and every one of us has to be accountable to the outcome of that patient. And this is a distinct difference between us and the airline industry. In the airline industry, they do not have to worry about 200% accountability because if the plane goes down, everybody dies. In healthcare, if you don't speak up, the patient dies and you go home and have dinner. And it's a distinct difference that is unique to healthcare compared to some of those other industries. So ARC is a communication technique that can help assert a concern in a non-threatening way to avoid coming on too strong, but yet keep you focused so that you get your mission accomplished. And so it stands for ask a question, make a request, voice a concern, and if no success, use the chain of command. So, as an example, if you're worried, you would say something like, Dr. Jones, I know how important patient safety is to you. Aren't we supposed to complete a timeout prior to beginning the case? That would be ask a question. Certainly if Dr. Jones listens, it's done. But if he does not, you have the responsibility then to say, Dr. Jones, I am requesting, make a request, that the team take a couple of seconds to complete the timeout before beginning. If he still fails to listen, you need to say, Dr. Jones, I am concerned about the safety of our patient. We need to complete the timeout. If he doesn't listen, you must say, Dr. Jones, before I can begin assisting with this procedure, I need to speak with my supervisor. This is a very important concept because this comes up not infrequently. It is not unusual to get an occurrence report where the first two were done. They asked a question, they made a request, but they stopped there and let it proceed. So we must be committed to using all four parts of ARC. Along the same lines is something called stop the line. Now, a lot of you on the back of your badge, somebody have stop the line on the back of their badge? Stop the line works along the same characteristics as ARC, but you're stopping for clarification or to interrupt a process when a significant threat to a patient's safety is perceived. The reason why we say stop the line is because you can't mitigate it. It's so unusual, the recipient has to hear that there's a concern. We don't say that often. And this originated in manufacturing. And traditionally in manufacturing, management will pressure workers to keep the line running at all costs. It's basically quantity over quality. And the philosophy was, if there's a problem or a defect, we'll sort it out at the end. And it was Toyota that recognized that that's a very poor business strategy. It was their continuous improvement process that probably transformed them from a small manufacturer into one of the world's largest car manufacturer because they originated this idea of stop the line. In all their facilities, they had something called an andon cord, where all workers had the responsibility that if they noted any defect in any Toyota car, they would stop the entire manufacturing process right there and fix it at that time. And it is probably the main characteristic that transformed Toyota to what it is today. They no longer use that andon cord. They all have a little like electronic beeper that can stop the entire process, but they're all encouraged to stop the line at any defect that they see. Everybody heard about the 5 pennies? You know, it's very hard to say positive. So you put 5 pennies in your pocket at the beginning of the day, and every time you say something positive to somebody else, You just move 1 penny over, and your goal is to say 5 things positive in a day. It's surprisingly harder than you think, but just imagine if, as a hospital, as a system, we had 1,000 people with 5 pennies. We actually have $5, but we'd have $50. 5 pennies, but through that day, everybody was moving the 5 pennies over. How much more positive feedback we'd be getting. And then the other comment was the word feedback is often perceived as negative. So do you have a moment for a thought or that type of thing? So any other comments on that?
I think to avoid conflict, a lot of times we take a lot upon ourselves, and maybe that's not the right answer. We can address the problem itself very directly and forward, and just make it direct to the problem and not a reflection on the person. So if a person is not completing a job specifically the way they should be, then specifically address to the job. This has not been done,
Right.
you know, and then sometimes you have a better way of like getting the person to address the issue, and you're not making a reflection on the person or anything else, but to get the issue correct.
So addressing the behavior, not the person. The specific task.
This specific one was talking about the bed not being
Right.
lifted up properly each time and happening repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jen helped me out. What did you say, Jen? Andrea, you didn't put up the bed.
Right.
My reaction is not addressing anything to me. If she's not saying I'm a bad employee,
Right.
she's just
Exactly.
And then
That's
I'll
good.
be like, oh, I'll make sure to do that from here onwards.
Right. As a pediatrician, it's so funny how much stuff that we tell parents that really applies. You always tell parents, you know, don't say he's a bad boy, or don't say he's a good boy. Say, I really like how you're sitting there reading your book. Don't say you're being a bad boy by throwing that. I don't like how you use it. So don't label the child, label the behavior. A lot of stuff in pediatric applies to healthcare for some reason. The other one is water the flowers, not the weeds. I can't tell you how many times a day I say that to patients.